This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard, whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast. We have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show. This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by Mountain Glass Arts. Mountain Glass is holding their January sale, which includes borosilicate Golden Gate tubing at 20% off. Just put in the term Golden Gate at checkout. And they also are holding their soft glass COE 104 sale on a Fetre or a Moretti rod at 30% off. Just put in the word Fetre, that's E-F-F-E-T-R-E at checkout. For any other questions or comments, just go to mountainglass.com. That is mountainglass.com. And this show is also brought to you by Green Flash Glass. And if you are a wholesaler, retail store, get a hold of them through their website at greenflashglass.com. Give them a phone call and place your order. That is greenflashglass.com. And all sales are always free shipping that are $1,000 or more. And now on with the show. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode number 79. This is Jay Michael, your host. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I am excited to bring you conversations with artists, sharing their stories in hopes to inspire and entertain while helping you grow your businesses. Today we are going to be going over our glass knowledge segment with our boy Shane Penn, and today we are talking about Incalmo. Incalmo is one of those techniques that is very simple looking and is also very complicated and tricky and time consuming. It is also a very awesome technique to learn for creating a strong foundation for yourself, knowing and learning all of your colors, how different things work in terms of consistencies in glass, between, say, a cobalt and a clear and like a slime. You know, there's all kind of different things going on. But overall, it's a shit ton of fun. And the Incalmo has definitely been our theme for the week, as we had Charlie Sanford on our last episode, and he was discussing his using the Incalmo technique now in his current work that he's doing, which I find very fascinating and is also very well done. You guys can go check him out again. His last episode, he was in 78. You can find him at Sanford Glass on Instagram. But also, you know, there's a lot of fun things involved with it. Again, I like the idea of going through your colors and creating balls out of it and really learning the medium itself, how the glass works, the color works, the consistency, because every color works just a little bit different. So, you know, it's one of those kind of things. So it's definitely a cool conversation with Shane we get into. Also, if you guys go to mountainglass.com/wiseguy, you guys will soon see there right now that's under construction. But they are creating a page specifically for you guys out there and for the show. For you, the guests, who have an opportunity to get a little discount for being a listener on the show, which I think is super awesome. They now have the banner for the show as well on their homepage and their little scrolly thing they have there. Just kind of an inside thing right now, too, just a little behind the scenes for you. I'm currently under a blanket in the studio because the echo in here is kind of crazy. I was going to set up like a little trifold kind of setup here to help muffle out the sound a little bit, and because it didn't happen fast enough, using a blanket. So I'm not sure how it's going to sound, but hopefully it sounds okay. And also being here in this facility that we're in, it's very noisy outside at times. So if you guys hear any kind of background banging around or whatever, just I apologize ahead of time. One more thing, too, before we get out of here, to let you guys know, please, if you want to send any questions in to get answered or have any comments you want to leave me, please go to info@wiseguyradio.com and leave them there. You guys can also go to wiseguyradio.com and subscribe to our newsletter. We'll be starting our sign-up next month, starting in February. For those that might be interested in doing our and being a part of our mastermind group. Also going to be putting out a post here pretty soon, starting in February as well. I'm going to be offering some free 15-minute coach calls for you guys. Basically, the idea is to start the process of really getting to know you as the listener, giving you the opportunity to give me a call and have a one-on-one conversation where we can really figure out areas of your glass or even of the business that you feel like you're struggling in. And then we can find tools and ways to go about that. And this is all free, so I'm just something I wanted to offer you. It's just some more of a one-on-one kind of basis type of thing. So please feel free to contact me. Again, it's info@wiseguyradio.com, and that's WYZGUYradio.com. And that goes for you listening in Japan. That goes for you listening in Russia. That goes for you listening into the United States, Canada, wherever you're listening right now. And I definitely want to involve anybody and everybody who is interested in being a part of this. So look forward to hearing from you. So all that information, again, will be in our newsletter, and I will also be posting up some info on the Instagram page that I have created for the show, which is wiseguy_radio. And again, it's WYZGUY_radio. You guys can find that on Instagram. And then also you can find me as well on my personal page on Instagram, which is jmichaelglass. Come follow me, see what kind of work I do. Starting next week as well, kind of a new kind of thing going on here in my world is Disney called me to see if I was interested in coming back on a full-time basis or almost full-time basis temporarily. Disney is opening a brand new park in Shanghai, China. And the Rebus brothers, who I work with, we have a shop opening up in Shanghai. So besides getting our artists trained, Miguel Arribas, who is one of our master lamp workers, he does the stitch work pattern, which is incredible. But he's in the process of building a new castle for us for our Shanghai store. So while he's in the warehouse building the castle, I'll be on stage performing and making olafs and flowers and vases and all kind of fun stuff. I'm looking forward to that, getting a little change of pace and what have you. And also, it'll give me the ability to really focus on certain areas of the show. Before I go on for too long, I'm going to get the hell out of here. I hope you enjoyed the show. Again, the segment is with Shane Penn from Glass Knowledge on Instagram. And today we are discussing Incalmos. Love you guys. We'll talk to you soon. See you on Friday. Q&A. Send me questions. See ya.
Now it's time to share some glass knowledge with your host, Jay Michael, and the creator of @Glass Knowledge on Instagram, Shane Penn.
Hey, what's up, everybody? We are back today with our Glass Knowledge segment featuring Shane Penn. What's up, dude?
Not much, Jason. How's it going yourself?
Pretty good, man. Recording for the first time in the studio, so you guys might hear some background noise or echoey noise or some kind of weird shit, but we're going to make this happen here today, talking about Incalmo.
Yes, Incalmo. What a fun little subject. Since it's also a very old, like many of our glass techniques we've talked about, it's another technique that goes way, way, way back, all the way past the Venetians and into like Syria and stuff. So it's an old technique. For those of you out there listening who don't know what Incalmo is, it really refers to almost slices of colored glass that are fused together in little sections. So the word Incalmo literally means to graft. It comes from Venice, old Venetian dialect, and joining plants. So the idea is that in Incalmo you are joining two separate pieces of glass together, and that's the that's the nitty gritty of it. It's the grafting of two different glasses together, and that's usually done in a very straight, uniform line as well. And it's horizontal banding is really what the effect creates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting too thinking about the grafting, because I know like I've done grafting before in plants, and you have to have a smooth, clean cut, and they both have to be the exact same size cuts to put them together. So and then you tape them and they grow together. So the glass is exactly the same way. You can't have any variations in your sections you put together, or you can tell it because you don't have a clean line.
Absolutely. And it's not only a boro technique either, it is also a soft glass technique, but the way to make both of them happen are very different. In soft glass, you can literally like take like rings of glass and stack them and then put them in the kiln and anneal them and melt them together into one tube of Incalmo, while borosilicate is a little bit trickier from how I understand it. Yeah,
the boro is, especially because the boro is a lot stiffer as well, so it's tricky to really get. I think it's probably one of the most tedious, I guess in a way to put it, time-consuming techniques, because the amount of prep work that's involved to create these pieces. Like I know guys that do Incalmo work that spend 2 days on just doing prep, making little balls, and it's all about, once you get to a point of your work where you can really tell consistency just by feeling the glass, like the weight in your hand, by using consistent blowpipes and what have you. You really get a feeling for how much, you're working with. I know some guys, too, will actually weigh the glass out, because then they know specifically that each section that they're using is exactly the same. Because, again, if you don't have the same consistencies, even in thickness of your tubing, say if you want to stack a piece, like say you're making a cup, just like a glass you drink out of, that's got 6 sections in it, and you have 3 sections of red and 3 sections of blue, and you want all 3 sections of glass of the red to be the same thickness of band, size-wise, and the width of how you look at it, however you want to say it, they have to exactly be the same amount of glass. And it's so tedious and tricky to really get that down to a point. The prep, like I said, the prep involved is huge. We've gone over in past shows about doing line work and different ways of doing prep for creating solid tubing, but quill potting or what have you. But it's definitely
there are plenty of different ways to prep work. But
but that's how you start.
Absolutely. And I think one of the big things with Incalmo too, that you need to look at and you need to talk about is just it can be very simple and very easy. It can be just two colors meeting exactly together, but it's that perfect horizontal line, just how even and uniform it is, that makes it really, makes it unique and very special and beautiful as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Especially when you do two colors that are complementary to each other, and then you feel like a black stripe in between the two sections to separate them. It really makes it pop. But if that black isn't even, you're going to be able to tell that black segment of glass isn't consistent.
Absolutely. And the other thing to think about too, especially if you're in soft glass, because these are very much a lot more, but with borosilicate as well, is varying COEs make a big difference when trying to work with Incalmo too, because you need to meld them together at some point as well. And this technique can be used to slowly transition from one COE to another, as long as you take the right steps and precautions. At least that's how I understand it.
Yeah, it's true too. I would recommend anybody wanting to start this off to use cobalt and clear, and do bands of cobalt and clear, because you have two different consistencies of glass for one, but cobalt's really easy to work with. It's very fluid, even though it can be stiff. But for instance, if you say you want to do some slime, and slime, even though it's somewhat of a transparent color, it's still very stiff in the consistencies. So if you had some slime next to some cobalt, they're not going to blow out the same necessarily, because the consistencies are just different, just the way that they're made. It's like taking oil and water in a sense. They just, they don't always want to mix. It's weird.
But you could go from cobalt all the way to slime if you slowly went to cobalt to clear, or to another color that's slightly more towards slime, and you can work your way there.
Yeah, I agree. Exactly. Yep.
It's just, and that is, I think that goes back to what you're saying, is that's prep work right there. That's laying out all your colors and going, all right, I have cobalt over here and I have slime over here. What do I need to put in the middle that's going to let me get there? And how many sections do I need to take in order for me to make that proper seal and to make that proper conjunction?
Yeah, especially depending on how crazy you want to get with it, because you go guys like Vela G, who will have a section that has 25 freaking sections in it, and it's only 4 inches long. And he's just stacked all these freaking sections, and it's amazing to see it done, and then it's beautiful, and it looks like just someone drew some stripes and spun it up and made a spiral, and but
it's so much more than that.
Yeah, it's so much cleaner and so much more time consuming, and again, why Incalmo work is pricey, and it's worth the money that goes into it.
Oh, absolutely, and Incalmo is a very expensive process, and it's very hard to do. I think that goes with a lot of glass blowing techniques out there, is that the more time that it takes, the cooler it looks. Well, I think some of the bigger pieces in Incalmo have that look. I think you nailed it right there with a small 4-inch piece that has 10 lines in it. Doesn't look the most impressive if you don't know. And that's something that I think that increases values, just knowing the technique and the difficulty that go into it.
I think also it increases the value of what we're doing with the show, by educating people out there to understand that this stuff isn't just a glass pipe. This is someone's heart and soul that they spent 5 hours on this little fucking section of glass. It's crazy. So we can educate the folks out there and give them the appreciation, even for those that aren't the glass artists necessarily, and for those who are the glass artists, it kind of gives you a heads up on what you're going to be getting yourself into, in a sense. But what's fun too with the Incalmo work, it doesn't just stop at solid colors. When you do a stack of reversals or what have you, that's also all Incalmo. You got to have a clean sections, even sections, clean holes, the whole 9 yards to stack your sections up together to really make a nice clean reversal section. As well.
Perfect. And I think that's honestly that's something that we have talked about in the past, is that just because a technique is traditionally done this way does not mean there isn't room for experimentation, there isn't room for growth, and there isn't room for new ideas, new ways of bringing it to. So while traditionally Incalmo is usually straight colors meeting at a very flat edge, so you can really see the distinct difference between those colors, there is so much room, using reversals, using stringer, using fuming, there's a lot of different things you could do. You could do straight clear. You could do an Incalmo stack of straight clear and just have each piece fumed incredibly different colors,
Mm-hmm.
and still do it. I don't know if anyone has done that or if I've seen anyone do anything like that. But open up your imagination, people.
Yeah, I think that the Maccabee and some of those guys out there that do like the super awesome fume work, like I've seen some of those guys that do that. They'll do like different sections that are totally different patterns, totally different fume techniques, and then they stack them. And it's pretty fascinating. Getting into that kind of stuff. But what's also fun with the Incalmo too is you can take the horizontal lines and then you can blow it into a ball and reverse it and then stretch it out and now you have vertical lines, which then you can take that and you can wigwag them if you want or do whatever. Like there's different ways of going about creating that work. And then along the same lines too, those that do Incalmo, it will really show the audience in the world who's purchasing your glass how lazy of a glass artist you actually are, based on how clean your work is, because it really will show you whether or not your work's clean. It's like getting your car detailed. You go to a guy that's a good detailer, you're going to pay some money for it. The guy that's a shit detailer, it may cost you $20.
Incalmo is a time-consuming technique. That is very true. And so, I think that comes down to it is, if you're learning this or you're trying to learn this, make sure that you're ready to spend some time. Do it right, learn it right, and get better from there. Don't learn it wrong and try to teach yourself right later on. It's better to just take the patience, be methodical, and take the time in the beginning, because as you repeat that process, it will get faster and you will get better at it as well.
Yeah, I think too what it teaches you too is how to have really clean prep. Like I know when I got into the hot shop, the most important thing I was taught was your setup, like getting your gather on your blowpipe even, and then having an even bubble. If your setup is not proper, it's going to fuck up the entire piece. Like from the start to the finish, you're not going to have what you wanted to come out with. And the Incalmo is the exact same way. You've got to have clean prep. So just going through the process of learning how to do that alone, if you're working for somebody and someone's doing Incalmo work, if you have the ability to be the person that's doing their prep, you're going to learn a lot of shit just from doing that, blowing balls out and making clean balls. Because, the idea basically is, say you take a section of glass, you have a tube of, say, black that's 4 inches long and you want to rip it in half, so now you have 2-inch sections. You have an area where your blowpipe's attached, and that weld isn't always going to be a clean opening. So you literally have to take that 2-inch section, you blow a ball, you pop a hole in the opposite end of your blowpipe, you attach a blowpipe, remove the old blowpipe, and then you clean that area up, and then you have to blow the ball back out again. So now you have a perfectly round, even, consistent round ball. That might take you half an hour. And then you have a section that's got 25 sections in it. You got 3 days of prep.
And once you have those 25 perfect balls, then you have to go back, and even to put them together, you have to open them up to the perfect roundness. They have the perfect opening that matches exactly all the other 25 perfect openings.
Yeah, exactly. And also hoping that all your thicknesses of your glass is all the same as well. It's very interesting, how it all comes together. Yeah, man, it's fascinating. So do you have any history on the Incalmo itself, like the specifics?
A little bit of the specifics just kind of go into this, where the history of it, first off, it starts off like we're looking way back into ancient Syria, ancient Egyptian, like Mesopotamia area. And this was, old style soft glass, and it was very rudimentary, just fusing two glasses together. And the technique itself, much like many other techniques in our glass blowing industry, were not rediscovered or refound, or the idea didn't reoccur until the late 1500s in the island of Murano in Venice, and that huge glass blowing renaissance. And from there, the technique was kind of hidden, and it was considered a prized technique of like certain glass blowers and whatnot. So it was very much kept hidden until the 1900s or into the late 1900s, and like even in the early 2000s when it started making the crossover from the soft glass art into more of the functional. We see more functional borosilicate.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the big part about this, is that like all of our techniques and like most things, I think Venice, honestly, I've been thinking about this for a while, that the whole Venetian time period is a perfect example of why having an open community sharing techniques is much better than having a closed off area where everyone is really, really secretive and closed off, because that's how we lose these glass techniques. And yeah, we may have this is a very brief period of 25 years of growth that we've had. While if we extend further, Murano, like they had those glass blowing techniques for a couple hundred years, and then they just vanished.
Yeah.
And they died. And that's because they were kept so hidden and so secret. So.
Yeah, it's so true. Just this last episode I had with Charlie Sanford, which is also why I wanted to talk about Incalmo today, because that's something new that he's been working on for several years now. And he's been blowing glass since 1993, which is kind of crazy. He's like one of the first guys, in the pipe community. And we got into that same discussion, like, growing up early in this industry where nobody talked about anything, so we weren't exposed to all these techniques, the Incalmos, the reversals, the wrap and rakes, all that shit. Where, like, the new generation now has this full access to all this stuff, and it's an honor to be able to be here and share this stuff and help to educate the new guys coming in and the old guys, because there's a bunch of us out there that have been doing this shit for a long time that we still don't have the exposure to the community like we'd like to.
Hell yeah. I mean, just on Torch Talk on the page today, there was someone talking about how today marked their 150,000th pipe that they made, like hand pipe, like bowl or whatever you want to call it, over the 17 years that they've been blowing glass. And they had a picture of their first bowl they ever made and the recent one. And someone had the gall to comment on and been like, this is cool and all, but one, I don't believe you made 150,000 pieces, which honestly, if you do the math and you're working like, 60, 40 hours a week, and if you can pump out a hand pipe, 5 an hour, which not a lot of glass blowers can do that. If you can do that, it's not unfeasible at all. It's very much about the amount that you'd get.
Oh, dude, I've probably made probably 500,000 pipes in the 17 years of doing this. Like I had a wholesaler. He was buying hundreds at a time. I mean, literally like 300 or 400 at a time.
Exactly.
Every week for years.
But the thing that really bugged me was some young like glass blower had the nerve to go on there and been like, this is 17 years worth of experience. Like, this is 1 year progress here. Like, this looks like you've been blowing glass for 1 year or whatever. And it's, my whole thought was let's see, if he started in 96, the first 8 years of his glass blowing experience, he might not have had anyone to tell him anything at all. Mm-hmm. The fact is, like, those what you can learn in 1 year glass blowing today in 2016 would have taken you a decade in 1995.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah, absolutely.
It's just a better understanding of how mechanics work. I mean, you didn't have people holding your hand and teaching you like, oh no, there's that don't do it that way, You had a few people teaching you the ropes, but it was a lot of self-discovery. And I hear that from old glass blowers all the time, that the olden days, it was all about experimentation and all about just pushing yourself and,
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why like the generation of like the Joe Peters and Coyle and those guys have excelled so well, because they came into a period like 10 years ago. So the skills were starting to be shared, and then the communities were coming together and having studios and stuff, and these guys had amazing talent and came in with that talent, and then they just exploded. And now you see those guys teaching classes, and now the new generation's coming in, and it's getting even bigger.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. But then on the Incalmo side, again, you go to the guys like the Vela Gs that are doing these amazing Incalmo works, and the younger generations don't understand really. Yeah, that's 50 or 60 fucking bands of glass this dude just put into this section. And you can't complain that he wants $2,000 for it because it took him a week to make it. It's funny.
Price is irrelevant. Artists price their work at what they price them at, and if you have a problem with that, that's fine. But when it comes down to it, most things are not too expensive unless there's like a very obvious reason for it. The reason it's priced that way is there's a good reason, and it's because it took a fucking long ass time.
Yep.
When someone spends 3 days on a piece, like what do you make? Like what do most people make a day? Like a full-time professional painter makes $200 a day. Like so if it took 3 whole days and like $150 worth of like 100 of material, $150 worth of material to make this piece, and all this time, stress, and whatnot. Like, yeah, you can charge $2,000 for a one-of-kind little piece of art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, and I think that's what again is so fun with the Incalmo technique is it really shines in so many areas of being a glass artist, from knowing your technique, knowing your materials, knowing your medium, knowing your torch, knowing your hand torches, your blow hoses. I mean, there's so many little nuances that are involved in this technique that you take some guy that's been blowing glass who's like, oh, I can make some rigs now. I've been doing this for 6 months. And it's like, okay, well, now make a rig that's all Incalmo. And he's like, well, what the fuck's Incalmo?
What the fuck's Incalmo, and how do I do that?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it's important to get these foundations down. I still preach pull and points. I know there's a whole argument still. I'm gonna do a whole show on pull and points versus using blowpipes. I think there's so much involved in pull and points that you learn from doing that. The Incalmo thing, again, that's why I was saying it's if you could have an opportunity to be an apprentice to learn, to make someone's sections for them for their Incalmo work, to learn that technique, it's huge. I mean, there's especially with all the new colors out nowadays. I mean, you go from like an Illuminati to, freaking Purple Lollipop or whatever. There's even those two alone, the consistencies are so different. It really will teach you your palette.
You know what I'm waiting for, realistically, I think would be really cool is we have all these introduction of all these like UV colors coming out. We have UV slime, that's UV green. We have a UV pink now and a UV red almost. And I think there's also UV reactive blue color out there too. All it's going to take is once we get the Roy G bibs, we're going to have these like, a UV reactive Incalmo piece that's all the rainbow color would be pretty dope.
Yeah, it would be super sweet. Hell yeah, I agree. Yeah, that'd be badass. Yeah, and it's only a matter of time, man. And again, to have that black in between each color, that's probably the hardest part. It's like doing a lip wrap on a cup, or on a foot. It's like that's that right there sets someone's piece apart from somebody else's piece.
Now, when you do that, do they simply add the black in, or is that just a super thin, small ball of black that's just been blown out super thin to add to it?
The best way to do it, I would think, from my experience, is to have a separate section that you're adding to it. I have experimented with Incalmo doing quill potting, like I'll have a section of blue, and then I'll quill pot directly onto that piece. I find that the initial layer that you lay down for the quill pot is usually the most inconsistent part of the whole ball that you create, and if that's the first part you put on, that's supposed to be like your segmented line that's supposed to be clean, it doesn't come out clean. So I think even those little bands, like I saw with Steve Seislov had a little trick for his lip wraps that was a pretty cool thing where he actually left a little bit of clear on the surface to make that thickness and consistency the same. But if you do that on an Incalmo, that clear is going to show. It's going to either bleed into the next color or, it's going to make the inconsistencies a little weird. So I would recommend having every Incalmo section that you're doing to be a completely different section, like 100%.
So don't be lazy is what you're saying.
Exactly. Make them smaller. Use some 9.5 and make some little tiny balls that will be your segmented bands in a sense. Your in-betweens.
For those of you who don't have access to an Incalmo artist where you can apprentice at and whatnot, I haven't looked into it personally, but I know there are tons of glass blowing webinars out there where it's just like $40. It's a web seminar. You get some of them are live where you get a live video feed with a certain artist who will be teaching a class for the day, and then you get access to videos afterwards. But there's also just tons of like maybe $30 and you get access to a full YouTube tutorial I've seen ones from like Big Z teaching how to do glass opal, like him personally just talking about his like the crushed opal glass technique. And so there are opportunities out there. You just got to Google. You just got to look out there for them. So.
Yeah, man. Part of the show, actually, I've already set up a YouTube channel for Wise Guy Radio. It's going to be the WGR TV we're going to do. And it's going to be all of everything that we talk about in the show, I'll have a video for. So I'll have a demonstration on Incalmo and how to prep it up properly and how to set it up and how to do it. Like we had talked about before we started recording, like I'm going to start doing things on how to properly set up your liquid oxygen tank, like little details that people really aren't aware of or haven't been explained. Besides being a glass artist, there's so much involved, the little nitty-gritty details. And I think by having this YouTube channel to kind of encompass all of that stuff is going to help out tremendously. And eventually we're going to have a premium version of it as a membership fee. But for right now, we're going to be doing it all for free for everybody.
When it comes down to glass and whatnot, and one of the things I've kind of pulled through a lot of my other experiences in life, especially snowboard instructing, was the snowboard instructing motto was safety, fun, and learning, in that order. And I think with glass blowing, same thing. Are you safe? Is your setup safe? Are you using your equipment correctly? Are your lines right? Are you being safe? Like I saw an example yesterday. I saw someone who had a torch that was drilled into an ironing board. That was their torch stand. Terrible idea. That's very flimsy. That could fall over. And if that falls over while things are on fire, you're fucked, you know?
Yeah.
Like, exactly. And so first safety, and then the next part is fun. Like, are you having fun in what you're doing? Like, that should just be an obvious thing. Like, are you enjoying glass blowing? If you're not having fun, are you having fun doing your Incalmo work? And the last part is learning. So that's where these YouTube channels, that's where this all comes in, is you need to be learning. You need to be pushing yourself forward.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. Yeah, and especially now with the amount of guys out there and gals that are really mastering these techniques, there's such a plethora of artists now that are teaching, and we can really learn these techniques, and especially because each artist is really grabbing one tech and that's like their thing, so they can really teach it even more so now because they've mastered that specific item. It's so easy to want to get stuck into doing everything out there, but really you got to focus on one thing. So if you guys want to learn about Incalmos, just go on Instagram and just look up #Incalmo, and you'd be amazed what you find.
I think that is true. And I think one of the big things about it, like I think what you just said, is it is good to hyper focus as an artist. And it's good to master techniques or, get good at them before moving on and whatnot. But don't let that, I don't want to say don't let that limit you. If you're in Incalmo, like if you like doing Incalmo, that's great. But make sure that you're at least challenging yourself and changing it up. Like I'd say at least once a week. Like don't just do Incalmo. Like you need to branch out. It's good for your mind, and it's good for an artist to make sure they're having constant influence from other places. Also, not inside the glass community either. As an artist myself, I've been exploring wire, I've been exploring clays, I've been exploring a lot of other mediums lately too. And the things that you can bring that back into glass and the ideas you can bring back in are pretty cool.
Yeah, man, I've actually got a top secret project we're working on right now with my wife and myself and my stepmom, who makes homemade soaps for some new style pendants we're coming out with.
Soapy pendants?
No, I'll tell you off the air.
Okay, tell me off air. That's fine. It makes you feel any better. I got some cool ideas too that I've been working on. So it's all about finding your niche as an artist, and it's all about finding your personal style. So, and to everyone out there who's looking for that and trying to make their niche, good luck to you. I'm doing it the same, and if it makes you feel any better, like, I'm not doing the greatest either at it. It's a lot of art and it's a lot of marketing, and it takes a lot of practice of both.
Yeah, especially when you have like age right now going on. You know, it's you know.
Age is the worst. I can't sell to anyone right now. No shop in any of the area here wants anything to do with my work because they're going to age and they want all their money to spend at the booths. Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to get back in a different segment or show wise. I definitely want to talk about the trade shows, and you know, it's off topic of art, but I think it's really important for us to discuss, especially because you're a third party artist in a different medium. You know, but it's still important to discuss because again, it's a concern I have with the amount of trade shows coming on, but because there are 40,000 plus smoke shops in this country, I wonder what the actual percentage of them are that are going to these shows, you know.
The thing about it, though, too, is that, yeah, there are 40,000 plus shops in this country, but I would say about half of them are probably small tobacco shops that sell only foreign glass and have no interest, or I don't even call it foreign glass. I'm going to call it catalog glass, which is exactly what it is. It's you open up a head shop and suddenly you get a Zion magazine that has a whole catalog of everything from grinders to dugouts to Chinese-made pipes that you can just order a store right in then and there. So with trade shows that 40,000 stores in America, I'd say probably I'd give it at least half of them are filled with like catalog glass and catalog products like Zion or any of these other, like, you just open up a store and like suddenly you, like, I've worked at stores where you suddenly you just get a catalog in the mail. You didn't even order it. Suddenly it's here and it has, you know, everything from dugouts to grinders to glass made and imported glass that you may not know where it comes from, but it's cheap, it's affordable, there's prices right there. And I think that the artists, especially the ones who are listening to the show, are trying to sell to those other 20,000. And those other 20,000 are either, one, they are either going to these trade shows, or two, they're seeing what's coming out of those trade shows that are popular, and they're trying to get those glass. Like, artists who win at Champs, or artists who win, like, you know, place in any of these competitions, their glass career can be made.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
And I don't want to call it hype money, but part of it is, like, you know, and that's good. Like, if you have the skills to pay the bills, then they should pay the bills.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a whole different environment out there, too. It's cool. It's kind of it's kind of funny. I was talking with Joe at Mountain Glass the other day about it. You know, it's like the glass artist is like the most, from what I find, one of the most introverted type of artist out there because of the amount of time we stay in our caves. And, you know, with the movement of people getting together in studios is a little different nowadays, but we're still pretty introverted until we get them, all of us, in a trade show like that. And then it becomes a fucking crazy mass party.
Yeah, everyone's just partying and celebrating.
Having fun. Yeah, it's good shit, so. Yeah, man. So before we get too far off topic, I definitely think that the Incalmo process is definitely, critical for those to learn. I mean, you can break it down to as simple as attaching a blowpipe to a piece of tubing, you know, and making sure your sections and your openings are perfectly clean, because in a sense that's an Incalmo, you know.
Absolutely.
You know.
So. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a good place to like kind of end it off as well, is that just remember that Incalmo is grafting of two different pieces of glass together. And the more pristine and precise and perfect you can make that, the better Incalmo work you can do. And the more sections of color you add, the more horizontal banding and the cooler the technique appears.
Exactly. I agree.
And also, don't forget about colors, because your color palette and how you decide to band them is just as important as the process and how clean it is itself.
Yep, exactly. Hell yeah. Cool, man. Well, if you guys have any other questions, you can contact myself at info@wiseguyradio.com. You can hit up Shane Penn at Glass Knowledge on Instagram, and also his Infinite Alchemix page as well. Any shops out there want to pick up some of his work, you can definitely contact him there as well. And where else can we get you at, Shane?
You can get me there mainly on Instagram, kick at all copper everything, one word. But yeah, if you're looking for electroformed pieces with beautiful crystals and cool artwork or cool designs with any copper on it, hit me up.
Yeah, we're about to release a new line between myself and Shane, so
yeah,
keep an eye out for that.
I got 20 Wise Guy rigs just waiting
for
some copper on them. So thanks for listening as always, everyone. I enjoy being on here. Jason, thank you for having me. Until next time, everyone, take care.
Take it easy. See ya.
See ya.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. If you have any questions, comments, or remarks, please leave them in the show notes page area where it says comments. We'll see you soon. Have a wise night.
You're listening to the Wise Guy Radio Show.